everyone, today I'm here to bring you my top 10 books of 2016. So 2016 was an amazing reading year for me. I would have to say I think it's my best reading year so far, being here on BookTube, which I've been on for 5 years now, I think. I can't remember. But like I said, it has been my favorite reading year so far because I really focus on the quality of books, and because of that I have an amazing top 10 list. Like, I literally love all of these books. My previous top 10, sometimes I've struggled with, like, I don't really like it. Should it be on this list? This list, I can honestly say I love every single one of these books. Like, I just am obsessed with them. Like I said, I have done these before. I think I have 5 previous ones for all throughout the year, so I will link them all down below if you want to see my previous top 10 videos. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get right on into it because I have a lot of amazing books to talk about. I can't wait to share them with you all. So with cheating a little bit, because it is my channel, so why not? I am giving 3 honorable mentions, so I guess it's a top 13, but really these are just 3 honorable mentions that I just want to quickly talk about that I really love, but they didn't quite make it into my top 10. I hope that is okay. First honorable mention is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. This is the first book in a new fantasy series. I really enjoyed this book. While I didn't give it a full out of 5 because I did have a couple qualms with it, I still really enjoy it so much that I think of it often and how much it resonated with me. This is a book all about 3 sisters who have to, pretty much at the age of 16, are destined to kill one another. So whoever is left standing becomes the queen, and they each have different powers. One's supposed to be a poisoner that can ingest any poisons. One's supposed to be a naturalist that is really familiar with animals and, you know, just nature and things like that. And one is supposed to be an elemental. She's really good with the weather and winds and fire and all that kind of stuff. So I really loved this book overall. Like I said, I love the different dynamics with it. I love that it's a queen. I love how brutal it is. They have to kill one another, and I did really enjoy it. I did want to quickly mention it. Like I said, I didn't get a full 5 out of 5 from me, but I still really liked it, and I want to talk about it because I can't wait for the next book, because this book was just pretty freaking awesome. I'm pretty sure I have done reviews on every single book I'm going to talk about in this video, so I will leave all the review links down below for you to go see. The next honorable mention is A Man Called Uwe by Fredrik Backman. Hopefully I pronounced that right. A tearjerker of a book. This book really resonated with me. It did get a full 5 out of 5 for me, but I didn't quite make it into my top 10, but I still loved it so very much. This is about a man named Uwe whose wife had previously died the last year, and he's planning to commit suicide. And then these neighbors move in and just things ensue. It's a very funny book with a lot of sadness in it. I love Uwe, and I thought it was just a beautiful read. And I love the way Fredrik Backman writes. I just found it very just hauntingly beautiful. And like I said, it's funny mixed with a lot of sadness. I loved it. And there is a movie out of this. They did a Swedish movie, and they do have American subtitles, and I watched it and I really enjoyed it. But like I said, this didn't quite make it into my top 10, but I still really liked it a lot, and I would highly recommend it. And my last honorable mention is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. This book just really was very thought-provoking. It was the most thought-provoking book I have read all year. This is all about a woman named Ruth, who is an African-American labor and delivery nurse, and one day she gets a patient that is actually a white supremacist, and due to a series of unfortunate events, their baby dies, and it's all about the legal case about it, and it just really delves more into Ruth's life and how she feels like she is being prejudiced because of her race, and it's just really an eye-opening book. It makes you see things that you have not seen before. It makes you look at yourself and see and think, am I doing the right things? Am I not? Am I, you know, doing all that stuff? This is such a thought-provoking book, and I would recommend it to anyone because it's amazing, and I love Jodi Picoult. These amazing court legal battles that I just love, and I find this is one of my favorite of hers, and I've read a lot of her books before, but I love this one, and I love how she wasn't scared to talk about scary things. You know, these things need to be talked about. Racism and things like that need to be talked about, and diversity needs to be talked about. So I highly recommend this book to everyone. It was such an eye-opener of a book, but it didn't quite make it in my top 10, but that doesn't mean I still don't love it, because I do. Now we're getting into my official top 10 list. So my number 10 book is the only book on this list that has not gotten a full 5 out of 5 from me, which I will talk more about. But that is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I read this book at the very beginning of this year, and I still think of it quite often. The reason why this book is on this list and not one of the honorable mentions that I actually gave 5 out of 5 is because this book has stayed with me so very much. This book was my first foray into thriller country. I am a scaredy cat person. I do not read any sort of thriller. If I see a book that says thrilling, I tend to stay far away from it because I don't want to do anything with it. But I decided to venture out this year and decided to read different things. It's the first thriller book that I read, and I really liked it. It was a great mystery thriller that was not too scary, and for that, That's why it's on my top 10 list, because it's my first mystery slash thriller, and it just really stuck with me. I have yet to see the movie, in case you're wondering. I'm just gonna have to wait until it comes on DVD because I did not get a chance to go to see it in theaters, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing because I haven't heard too many amazing things about it, but I do plan to watch it. But I still really enjoyed the book, and it was captivating, and it kept me gripped, and it kept me very invested. So I don't know, a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with this book. I really liked it. That's why it's on my top 10. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very thrilling ride. My number 9 pick is My Lady Jane by Cynthia Han, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This book is a historical retelling of My Lady Jane. You know, the Jane that was queen for like a week and then she got off with her head. These authors decided to give her a little bit of a happier ending. This book is so hilarious. This was definitely a surprise book for me this year. I went into this book just thinking, it'll probably be funny. It'll just be a book to get me through. No, I did not think I would love it as much as I did. The hilariousness of this book is just astounding. I just thought it was so funny, so witty, so satire-y, and several times it had me laughing out loud. A lot of books can make me laugh out loud. It takes a lot for me to cry, but this book made me laugh a ton, like a lot. I was laughing. I also liked it because it was a historical book, and I don't read too much of those, but I really like that this did have the huge historical element because it got me, again, out of my comfort zone. But again, this book was just so funny and such a good time. It's a book to read if you just want something lighthearted, yet funny, yet historical. I just really enjoyed it so much, and I really recommended this to a lot of people this year, and I will continue to recommend it to everybody because I thought it was just such a good time. That's what I kept saying in my review. This book is such a good time. It is to me. It was such a good time, and I loved it so much. The next book is kind of low on my list, people will probably think, because it's by a very well-loved author, but I just read a lot of good books, like I said, this year, and I felt like this one wasn't like one of my like amazing like top 3 favorites, but that is Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. It's at number 8. I know it's quite a huge steep usually for Sarah J Maas books, but I did really like this book. I did give it a 5 out of 5, but I do see there's problems with it. There's a lot of, you know, diversity problems. There's a lot of just, I also felt like there was a lot more adult scenes in it than I think should have been. I feel like in this series, which I do love a lot, it's an amazing fantasy series, but I feel like after book 3, we get kind of up into new adult territory more than YA. And while I don't necessarily mind it, I do feel like in this book in particular, there was just a lot more adult themes going on than I was ready for. By adult themes, I mean sexual content, in case you're wondering. I just felt like there was a lot more than I was expecting and a lot more than I felt was necessary, but I still really enjoyed this. I do love the whole fantasy element. I love Aelin, and I love the way she plots and schemes and this huge war going on, and I still really enjoyed this book, and I still really enjoy this series a ton. It is definitely one of my favorite series, but this is not my favorite book out of the whole series, if I'm honest with you. I still can't figure out which one is. Like, I talked about Queen of Shadows and how much I didn't really necessarily love it, but I feel like I like this one. I feel like I like Queen of Shadows more because it just sparked so much discussion within me within that book, and this one didn't do that as much. But again, I still love it, and of course it's going to be on my top 10, but I did feel like there were some problems with this book, but I still loved it. You can still love a book and still see its problems. That is 100% okay. Coming in at number 7 is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Adeli. I pronounced her name so wrong, I apologize. This is the second book in the Wrath and Dawn duology, one of my favorite duologies of all time. I love this book. I love this much more than the Wrath and the Dawn, which I did really enjoy, and I think it was on my top 10 last year. I'm never sure. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was amazing. Shazi is one of my all-time favorite characters. She is just a kick-butt character that does not take no for an answer, does not let any man hold her back from what she wants to do or what she thinks or what she feels, and it is just an amazing duology. This book in particular, if you don't know what this duology is about, it is a 1001 Nights retelling, and it's very, very beautiful. The way Renee writes, it's just beautiful. The way she writes her female characters is amazing. The way she writes romance in it is amazing. I love a good fantasy book with some romance into it, and I just felt this duology did it completely amazingly. And like I said, I did like the second one a lot more than the Wrath and the Dawn, but I love the Wrath and the Dawn. This one was just really awesome, and I'm so sad the duology's over, but I'm so glad to have read it. Coming in at number 6 is The Raven King by Maggot Stiefvater. This is the 4th and last book in the Raven cycle, and I am so sad that this series is over. This series has taken me for a ride. I love this series. This will be hands down one of my favorite series ever. When I first first read The Raven Boys a couple years ago, I was expecting one thing out of that book and got completely something different, something far much more amazing. And I'm so glad I stuck with this series. This series is a magical realism book. That's all I can really tell you. It's about ley lines and waking up a king, and it's just amazing. Just go into it not knowing much, and you will just be amazed, leaps and bounds by it. I will say it does take some time getting into it, especially the first book, but once you get into it, you are into it. The fourth book was amazing. I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing. That's one of my favorite things about her, is the way she writes so beautifully and so almost flowery. Like, she just is just such an amazing writer, and I love the way she writes descriptions, and her characters are just so amazing. The boys in this series, I'm so sad to say goodbye to my boys because they were my Raven boys. I love them so very much. The fourth book definitely shed some tears in me, definitely made me think a lot of things. It left me with a crap ton of questions. That's another thing with Maggie Stiefvater's writing. It's amazing, but she'll leave you wondering constantly a lot. Like, after this book, I was like, I don't feel like it's completed yet. So I think she might be writing more into this world, but this series is done. But of course, I love this book. I thought it was amazing. I wouldn't say it's my favorite book of the series. Ooh, that's another tricky question. Oh, so many hard questions with the what is your favorite book in the series, but I still loved it. This is one of my hands down favorite series, and I would recommend it to everyone. It is just so good. We're getting into the nitty gritty, the top 5 people. So my number 5 pick is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Are you surprised it's on here? Because I'm not. This is her first book in her Dark Artifices series, and I will say this is my favorite first book by Cassandra Clare I've ever read. I love the Mortal Instrument series and I love the Infernal Devices series, but both first books in those I kind of struggle with getting into them. This book I felt like it was such an easy flow because we've been in the Shadowhunter world for so very long. We already know the ins and outs. We already know the ins and outs of it, so I felt like she could just get right to work, and she did. And I really enjoyed this book. This was not only one of my favorite books of the year, it was also the longest book I read, coming in at 698 pages. I love this book. I love the characters in it. Emma and Julian, amazing. There's really not much bad things to say about this book because Cassandra Clare writes addicting stuff that I can literally not put down and not turn away. This is just amazing. I'm excited to see where the series goes, and yeah, I really liked it. Coming in at number 4 is Wolf by Ryan Grandin. I love this book. This is another historical fiction book. If you can believe it, I have 2 on this list, which is just astounding. This is actually, the first one I talked about was a history. Both of them are kind of history retellings. This is if the Axis powers would have won. So obviously Hitler's in control, and it follows a girl that goes on this mission, this cross motorcycle race, and if she wins, she gets to meet Hitler, and her mission is to kill Hitler. This book was such an amazing ride. I love the whole cross-country motorcycle element. That was one of my favorite things about this book, and I love the whole history thing, delving more into if this huge evil would have happened and would have won, like what would happen to our country, what would happen to the world, and it really delves more into that. And I love the way Ryan Grandin writes, and I just really enjoyed this book so very much. This is part of a duology, and I did really enjoy the second one, but not as much as I enjoyed the first one. I love the first one. Like, ooh, I can't get enough of that cross-country motorcycle race. I think this would be an amazing movie. Like, it would be amazing. If you're looking for an action-packed, thrilling, historical, like, retelling, I would look no further than this book because this book packs all the punches. My top 3 will probably not surprise anybody, but let's just go on to it. My number 3 pick is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I have been talking about this book ever since I read it. I love it so very much. This is an adult standalone book, or it might be a series. I don't know when it's ever going to come out, so as far as right now, I know it's a standalone. This is a book all about anti-heroes, about 2 boys that experiment with the notion of if they could become superheroes. Experiments and some tests, and eventually they do, and it's about them meeting up again, and they're just trying to kill each other, and it's all about the notion of good versus evil, right versus wrong, and constantly in this book you're switching sides of who you're rooting for. Are you rooting for the bad guy? Are you rooting for the bad guy, but is he really bad? Or are you rooting for the good guy that thinks he's good, but he's really bad? This is such an amazing book. Like, I can't get over how amazing it is. I just love the whole good versus evil, the anti-hero things, the vigilante thing. It was just astonishing. I love V.E. Schwab's writing style. It is just a thing of beauty, honestly, and I'd recommend if you like superhero books, if you just like good versus evil books, this is definitely a book that you need to check out for sure because it is just amazing. My number 2 pick is my only contemporary book on this list. If you're surprised, don't worry, I am too, because usually I am a contemporary lover, but this year I really changed up my tune. And the book that is number 2 on my list is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I just read this a couple months ago, guys, and I have to put it at number 2 because I loved it so much. I actually listened to this book, and I highly recommend, if you're interested in this book, to listen to it because they have dual narrators and they just really bring the story to life. This follows Natasha and Daniel. Natasha is a Jamaican immigrant who her family is actually getting deported. And this book takes place within 12 hours, which is amazing to think about because you only got 12 hours to tell the story. So her family's getting deported that night. Then she meets Daniel. Daniel comes from a Korean family. His parents are Korean born in Korea, but he is actually a Korean American, and he was born in America. And both of them are really struggling with their identity of where they call home, of their family. They both have a lot of family issues, but there's a notion of Daniel with Bets, you know, Natasha, I can make you fall in love with me one day. And it is just such a beautiful book, such a lovey-dovey book, but it talks about so many important things like diversity and family issues and racial things. It's just an amazing book. I would recommend to everyone, and it is such a beautiful book. I can't get over how much I love this book. Like, I want to reread it immediately right now. I want to reread it every year because how much I liked it. Like, the characters in this book were just amazing. If you're looking for a contemporary book that will just literally sweep you off your feet, this is the book for you. Coming in at number 1, it should be no surprise to anyone probably, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I really grappled with putting this at number 1 because I know a lot of people have a problem with this series, and I could definitely see its problems, but overall, if I'm honest with you, I just really love it. One big last year was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I love that book, but I love this book even more. I'm very sorry about this quick change of scenery. My memory card cut off at this point in particular, but I'm just gonna finish up what I was talking about. Basically, I love this book. I couldn't get over it. The first book, I was so heavy set on my ship. I was like, nothing's gonna steer me away from this ship. Nothing will touch it. And this book came out and obliterated my ship. Like, it sunk down in the waters. It's never gonna resurface again. And I did not think that would happen. That's very seldom times that has happened to me in the series. This book, it totally did it. I love this series so much. I know there is a lot of qualms and problems with it, which I can see, but I still ultimately love it a lot. Sarah J. Maas really writes addicting books that I literally cannot put down. So I love this book so very much. I thought it was just awesome. And like I said, I just love this book. So sorry for the quick change of scenery. I just had to finish what I was saying. Now we will go on to the outro. So that was my top 10 list, and it was such a hard list to comprise. Like, this list was probably the most hardest. Out of all the years I've written my list, this was the hardest because there's still some books I would love to talk about. Overall, I loved every single one of these books. Like, they all spark a core within my heart. They are all amazing, and like I said, I have reviews on every single one of them, I'm pretty sure, so I will link them all down below. And if you have your top 10 lists of this year, please share with me. What are your top 10 books from this year? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? All that stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe to see more future bookish videos because I have a lot planned for 2017, and I cannot wait to show you guys and share with you all of my bookish videos in the future because 2017 is going to be really fun, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.